Okay, so on a football note, Santi Cazorla, Arsenal player. He's had so many ankle surgeries and injuries, and it looks like a Dean Ashton type moment, where a very reasonably talented player has to retire in his 20s because of debilitating ankle injury. He had an operation because he had a tendon injury and it turned to gangrene, basically. He's had a couple more to repair the damage, and he's had another setback in his recuperation from his injury by having yet another surgery. And Wenger thinks his Arsenal career is over. Well, sod Wenger for a moment. This Santi Cazorla is a talented player, and he always plays with a smile on his face, and he's always very positive and he's skillful. It's very sad when something like this happens, but you've got to put it into perspective. The club sent him for surgery as part of his recuperation for an ankle injury. The surgeon, obviously, they didn't, do it as well as they could have because he had gangrene. Now, in the Western world, gangrene it should not happen after a simple surgery like that. It could have cost him his bloody leg. It was lucky that enough of his tendons survived to be rebuilt. But questions need to be asked: who did the surgery then? Because the aftercare clearly was shit. Because he's ended up with, almost losing his whole leg. So he's a very lucky boy to actually not die, because gangrene can kill you. Sepsis can kill you. He was a very, very lucky boy that it didn't actually take more than just a bit of his tendon. If he comes back to play, which is looking less and less likely each day, it is a miracle. Forget who he plays for now. His career is in jeopardy. And I've done videos on sportsmen's welfare and player welfare in more physical sports. Surely then, when players do get injured and they need surgeries, and they've been told you're out for the rest of the season, you're going to have a surgery, you're going to have a rehabilitation period. Sometimes clubs and teams are guilty of rushing, and individuals are guilty by their backroom staff being rushed back too soon. In this case, the surgeons and the doctors clearly did not do a very good job because he's now on his third surgery within 18 months. It's looking more and more likely that his career is done. But he's on this lengthy contract. Does that mean Arsenal have to pay him the rest of his contract in full? Do they have to pay some of his medical bills? There's all sorts of questions being raised by this. Now, I feel very sorry for the player because no one deserves that. He's not a dirty player. He's not like a controversial figure. He's a very well respected player. He's a very well respected person as well. He's when Arsenal were doing an ad campaign for their club and BT Sport and having Sky Sports, right? He even got involved in taking the mickey out of himself due to his lack of height because he's a very short man. And all you got Mertesacker, I'm Per Mertesacker, Cazorla, and he was like jumping up trying to get into that. That was the type of humour. I think it was to do with the FA Cup final as well. They had an ad campaign to do with TV rights, and he basically took the mickey out of himself. So he's got a sense of humour. He's very well respected by opposition players and by his teammates. So it's very sad that he might be forced into early retirement. We have to see if how he recovers, because it's also got to be for his life after football. If he's limping around and can't interact with his kids or his family or his nieces and nephews, because this is what other players who've now retired have mentioned, that they were getting to the point where they're in, and it doesn't matter on the sport. You had Mario Lemieux in ice hockey. He could barely tie his own laces on his ice skates. He had to get his teammates to do it for him because his back at times was ruined. That's shortened his career by a long way. Not the cancer, not the heart issue. It was his back. So there's that. There's been references to players having to retire young because my shoulder keeps dislocating. Rugby players, American football players. So constant injuries, this could shorten his career by a good 5, 6 years, 7 years. He could have another 7 seasons ahead of him, should this all heal up, but it's looking less and less likely. This is also one of the reasons why Arsenal have been so inconsistent. Is a key player is crippled. He's crippled at the moment, and they lack certain depth in midfield and on the wings. They do. Walcott, his final ball into the box is not good enough. And before anyone says, no, I'm not an Arsenal fan, I did a previous video on an Arsenal situation to do with Sanchez, and someone goes, I'm an Arsenal fan. No, I'm not. I'm a Blackburn fan, and I have been all my life, and it is more horrific because I support a worse club. There you go. So, I'm just picking up on this as an individual thing. I could quite happily go about why Paul Pogba should be banned possibly for longer for his stamp and how Lukaku got away with his kick out. And our Everton fans are up in arms about Niasse getting done for diving and how certain clubs get favourable treatment. And they have. Lukaku kicked out at an opposition player with vengeance and tried to injure him and got away with nothing. So before anyone says I'm a fan of this club and not a fan of that club, I'm a general sports fan. That's the point of this channel. If you look at the videos I've done, I've covered like 8 or 9 sports. Certain clubs deserve more attention at the moment because there's more stories around them. Other clubs are being very below the radar, like a Bournemouth. No one follows Bournemouth online. They're very quiet. They're getting about their business. They're lower to mid-table. They've got enough to survive. They've got players who could make it into the England or other squads for the World Cup. But no one seems to get up in arms about Bournemouth story. They were in the bottom 3 at one point and looking really, really low par, and they've just steadily climbed the table. Arsenal, there's more news about it because certain key players could be going to other key Premier League clubs or European clubs, Ozil and Sanchez. Santi Cazorla being injured for this long is really, really worrying for the depth that Arsenal don't have. They do not have the depth. They have the talented players, but they're not. Once one or two of them get injured, it all goes to pot. I'm going to leave that there though. We have to see how he recovers and if there is a chance of him playing again. It's looking less likely as each day passes. But an independent medical professional will be able to tell us, the fans, because there'll be Spain fans who'll be like, you know, and he used to play for, I think he played for Valencia at one point. So fans of Santi Cazorla around the world will be hoping he recovers because he is an exceptionally talented individual and he's also an exceptionally nice bloke. And this is like Dean Ashton, exceptionally nice bloke, a bit of a physical player, but he had to retire very, very young because his ankle was wrecked. And it was unrepairable. Certain players are injury prone. Andy Carroll at West Ham, constantly injury prone, and he constantly keeps getting sent off as well. So you have to look at, okay, is it the club that are the problem? Is it their training? Is it their rehabilitation? Are they rushing players back? Or is it actually the player's body's just breaking down regardless where he plays? And that could be the same with Santi Cazorla. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe. I hopefully, fingers crossed, he does play again. But if not, then he's had a great career, and he shouldn't put his body through unnecessary damage. It is sad that a career sometimes has to end. We shall see. Thank you very much for watching. I'll have some more videos for you soon. Please like and subscribe. And I'll might have some more later today. Definitely some more tomorrow. See you soon.